Mark Harris and I'm on the maintenance team at Adlington House, Portishead, Bristol. These are a set of short videos for maintenance men who perhaps have just joined, or for managers who might be in charge of the slightly smaller sites where you will be doing all the water runs and filling in the books and everything else. We're initially going to start concentrating on Legionella and water runs, and then we'll go on to the effect of temperature on the Legionella bacteria. Now, Legionella, as I've just said, is a bacteria that thrives between 20 and 45 degrees centigrade. It thrives in water that is still and not flowing, and it's a danger to us in that if there's a fine mist, an aerosol it's called, as in a shower, or as in when somebody's pulled a flush and water sort of sprays everywhere, or running a tap, when you breathe that fine mist in that you might not be able to see, it goes into your lungs, and your lungs are the perfect condition for Legionella to thrive in and start dividing. And once that's in your lungs, it can actually kill you. You can drink it in a glass of water, no problems at all, but breathe it in, you're in trouble. So your responsibility as a manager and a maintenance man is to make sure that you set the conditions within your site so that Legionella cannot survive. It has no chance of taking hold. And to that end, we're going to first of all do some water runs. I'm going to show you what to do, and hopefully you enjoy it. Thank you. All of you will have a room like this. This is what we call a comms room, and since we're concentrating on water today and Legionella and your role in preventing Legionella happening within your building, this is where we'll start, because this is where the water comes in. So let me just get behind the camera and show you. Seek out your incoming water, and as you can see, those pipes are coming out of the concrete, and that is the first area where water comes into the building. You need to know where they are just in case you need to shut off the total water supply to the building, and basically comes in there, two stop taps as you can see, and then carries on up to all 5 floors. So what we'll do now is go to the pump room, and you may not have a pump room, you may just have continual pipes like this feeding water throughout your building, but we'll have a look at that pump room and look at your role in looking after that pump room or the incoming supply of water. So here we are. The water comes in through that silver pipe, or that pipe that's covered in silver insulation, and then flows into this dirty, grubby, huge tank. First thing to point out is I want you to look and see how clean this area is. This is drinking water, so one of our responsibilities is to make sure the place is spotless. So consider this little area, this big huge tank here, as a buffer. It basically stores the water for a very short time. It has to be a short time because in the prevention of Legionella, a continual flow of water means that it doesn't have time to settle and stagnate. So these 3 pumps here, and they're doing their job at the moment, and it's about 8 o'clock in the morning. Really they're on most of the time gently in the background, and the system flows through to something like this tank will empty at least 4 or 5 times a day. Therefore the water in the tank is fresh and doesn't have time to settle. It then carries on through these pipes and to the rest of the building. You'll also notice, and we'll talk about that later, that at the top there, the orange pipes, they are the water supply to the sprinkler system. Now, there's nothing wrong with trying to make your life a little bit easier, and in this pump area there are a number of tips, a number of things I've done. I inspect this area once a day and I take readings. One useful thing to note, if I can get it focused, there we go, is that little black unit there is a simple fish tank thermometer, about £4 or £5 on eBay. I've got these installed in most of the water systems. It's cheap and effective, and straight away from that we know that the incoming water is 15.6 degrees centigrade. It's got to be below 20, so that's perfect. Moving along to the other end, where the water's been stored, and there's a temperature difference, as you can see. So the stored water is at 17.3, and that's good as well. Other useful readings which you'll have in if you've got this sort of system in your place. That's the general water pressure, and it's at, well, it started off at 3.5 bar, it's just slightly over, and it's 50 psi. Now I know this is normal because I've got a little green dot there and I've obviously made a note of it, so I know the water pressure is functioning fine. The pumps, they have readings on them. That's currently at 3.35. I've made a note on top that the normal reading is 3.41. This will vary obviously depending on how much demand is on the system, but at a glance I know it's healthy. Following the water line, various on-off units, and importantly at the top there's a feed to the sprinkler system. Now, I don't know if you can get a clear look at that, but I've got a green dot where the system should normally be resting at, so again I know that's a healthy system. That's an awful lot to take in, but once you get used to where all these dials and switches are, draw on the wall so you know what's on and off. You can wander in here once a day and say to yourself, yep, this is good. Once a month you want to check the condition of your tanks, and at that time also you'll be doing the temperatures with a probe, because whereas these are okay for a general check, the probe is what we have tested to make sure that it's accurate, and that's what we should use to keep our records, once a month Legionella checks. So we need to undo the top so we can see what the condition of the water is like. Want to see? Okay, beautifully clear. You can see right to the other end. There's a little bit of sand on the bottom. That will be from the filtration system that they have at Bristol Water. That's perfectly normal. You can see there where I've tied the probe for temperature testing. So this is all good. Obviously it needs to be checked regularly, and if it's at all in doubt, the tanks need to be cleaned. Keep a handy note of your system, how it works. You'll find it in your folders, your original site drawings and specification, and just have it handy for any engineers who visit. So the full information is there, pinned to the wall, ready for anybody to use. And on the other side, a little exercise I did for myself a year and a half, 2 years ago, no, 2017. I just made a note of figures once a month: highest temperature on level 4 tank, average temperature, highest outside, lowest outside, and was able to draw a graph. And from this graph you can see various bits of information. Highest temperature outside, 30 degrees, and from these sorts of line drawings you can see that the danger zone as far as water temperatures are concerned is here when it creeps up over 20. So you know that you need to keep a careful eye June, July, August, September, and then it creeps back down into below 20. What you would do in that situation is keep the water fresh and flowing. So you might have a longer water run when you go run the taps once a week. So let's go do that. Okay, so here we are in a cleaning cupboard, we call it. And within this cleaning cupboard we have a Gledhill tank, and we have an expansion vessel, various incoming taps and various valves. We'll go through those, and a sink. Now the first unusual thing you notice is that I've got some hose pipe attached to these two taps, and the reason for that is that Legionella is transported in fine aerosols of water, very small droplets. Now if you turned those taps on and the water then flowed into that sink, because of the drop there, the droplets went everywhere. Now that we've added these hose pipes, no big droplets, very little aerosoling. So it's things like this you might want to look out for when you're wandering around your building. Is there anything you can do to lessen the risk of aerosol production? It's called risk assessment. You're doing it all the time, of course. You might not realise it, but you are. Now, running the taps is simple. Turn the tap on and let it run. Feel for when that water gets cold, because you know that these pipes throughout the building get nice and warm, and when you run them once a week the temperature will actually go up for a second or two, then drop down as fresh water comes up from the tank that we looked at earlier. Hot is far simpler. Ouch, that's hot, that's fine. We've run that enough. That's not all, because we have this lovely expansion vessel. Now the theory behind this is that there's a big container full of very hot water. Hot water expands. In old systems, when these tanks were installed, you'd have a pipe coming out that would then go to the outside of the building, and if the water expanded too much, or if there was a bit of steam that had to be released, it would release straight outside the building. In a modern building we really don't have that option, so some clever person invented an expansion vessel. Simply, as the water expands, it, as you can see from the bottom, expands up into this system and goes into this tank. In there is a bladder, and that bladder has got air pumped into it like a big football, which should be at 3 bar, and we can talk about that because that's also something you might be looking after. At the top is a typical tyre valve, and you can just put a pressure gauge to the top of it and check it's at 3 bar or just below 3 bar. Now, what you've got to do once a week when you come in, if you've got this type of system, is not only just run the taps, but you've also got to check that this is working. And the way to do that is to isolate it. So I'm turning off the water supply, and I'm turning off the pipe where the water expands up from. So now this is isolated. What we can now do is drain it by just turning this. That was the water that had expanded into this vessel to make sure nothing explodes. Now clearly, water that doesn't go anywhere, that's lovely and warm and is in there for a week, has the potential to have Legionella in it. So we're disposing of that. And then we're turning the system back on again. And everything is now free to expand and move within this sealed system. One other thing to do, let's just close this off again. This is also an expansion or a blow valve, let's call it. If this all gets too much in here, this little spring will blow and just harmlessly send water down into the drainage system. No point in just staring at these for years, it's got to be tested just to make sure it's working. And you know the old adage, if you don't use it, it won't work. Same here. Okay, let's turn everything back on again. And then finally, the other little thing that I've done, as I said, I've got these installed everywhere. At a glance, I can see that this is at 57.4. Now, it's not 100% accurate because I know this tank will have water at 60 in it, but it's easily installed and it's an at a glance inspection. All it is this probe is attached onto this pipe via a bit of foam insulation, pipe insulation and some aluminium tape. And that's good enough for a quick glance. And yeah, it's working, it's all fine. Good, so what we've done in here is we've run the taps, we've checked the expansion vessel, drained it, and we've checked that the valves are working and that the temperature in the tank is fine. This sounds like a long drawn out process, but literally I can come in here and do this in a minute. There we go. Okay, another typical room that you'll probably have in your apartments or in your building is the laundry room. Now the only reason I've come in here is it's got a sink, and again we're just running water, Make sure if you've got this type of tap that you go from one end to the other. So I'm on cold at the moment, and I'll just keep my finger on there till I feel that it's at its coldest, and I do that. There you go, it's now getting colder. I do that because I know the water is now coming direct from the tank. The tank water is fresh, and therefore the pipes have cleared. So when I'm happy with that, I'll move it all the way to the hot, and when I go out, I know that those pipes are cleared. And of course, because the temperature is above 50 and it's heading towards 60 or at 60, Legionella cannot survive or is not active within that range of temperatures, and that's fine. So don't forget, with this type of tap, there's no point in leaving it in the middle like that. One end, other end. Staff bathroom. So again, to run the water, cold tap first. Hot tap, which has got a TMV valve on it, temperature monitoring valve. So this will only go up to about 42, 43. So you're not really getting a sense of whether the water's got very hot. But if you go to the back, I can feel that this pipe is hot. This is the pipe before it's got to the temperature monitoring valve, and therefore I know that that pipe is now clear because it's hot. Job done. And just for an added bonus, push the flush. So whilst we're doing these water runs, the added benefit of that is that water is going through the pipes, through the building. I start from level 5 and work my way all the way down, and by the time I've done that, the water in all those pipes is clean and clear and at the right temperature to make sure that any Legionella that might be there is dormant. Some of you may have spa rooms. Of course, within a spa room there might be an assisted bath. And again, it's very simple. Just run it up. Turn the temperature right up. .5. Handily, this one tells us what temperatures we're at, and of course they're set to be comfortable for residents. All working fine. Now, normally you'd keep this on because this every now and again times out a flow of water. About every 10 minutes it squirts some water into out from the pipes and into the bath. Again, it's all about Legionella and keeping the pipes clear. but on a night time this disturbs residents, so it's bright and early. We'll leave that off for now and turn it on later. Again, do the honours. With these taps, all you can do is just turn it on a little bit, and this is for cold. And then once that's come through, all the way to hot, fine. Lovely apartments we have here at Adlington House, and Adlington House is very popular and full, other than this apartment here, which is empty. Now, because it's empty, and I'll show you. Up there will be an isolation valve, and then the water comes into the building, into the apartment, and in here. Now everything is turned off as far as heating is concerned and as far as the boiler is concerned. But what it does mean is this whole apartment is what I would classify as one big dead leg. And once a week I need to come in here and run the water so that fresh water comes into this apartment, and therefore any potential for Legionella to get active is eliminated. So, exactly the same as before. You can see there's an expansion vessel. I would drain that expansion vessel. I'm sorry, I'm being summoned. Right, sorry for that interruption. Let's continue. So again, simply turn on the shower. Warm or hot. Of course it won't be because it's turned off. And then into the kitchen. Start with hot. Now I'd leave all of this running for about 2 minutes, because I have no indication as to when the hot water's coming through. I can feel it sort of warmish, but that's because the building's warm, which makes that lovely water for Legionella to develop in. So we'll run it and let it get clear. Cold. Shower still running. Now with cold I'll be able to tell. Okay. Running water in an empty apartment has another benefit which perhaps we don't think about. in that that's a drain down there, and when that drain goes dry, you can get the lovely smell of the drainage pipes coming right up into the apartment. Now if this apartment is being sold, you don't want drain smell. And again, that'll be exactly the same in this sink here. It keeps the sumps or the drains wet, which stops any gases coming up into the apartment. Drink dispensers. This is something else you might need to pay attention to. We have two of these freshwater dispensers, both with chillers in, and we have a tea urn. Now as far as the tea urn is concerned, it will naturally be refreshed and filled once a day as it's used. So there's no need to do really a specific water run on this, because every day the water gets used up and then it gets filled up again. What you do need to do with this sort of tea urn is get it descaled every now and again, but that's for another video. But as far as the water dispenser is concerned, once a week you do need to flush it through, and that is simply just running the water, and I tend to fill up the sump. There's a little red knob there that comes shooting up when it's full. So you don't need to watch that all the way, I'll just do that and show you when it's full. And there you go, the fact that that red knob is now all the way up means that that sump down there is filled. I tend to do this a couple of times, so I'm going to have to let you go now whilst I just take that sump off, and then we'll go empty it and clean it. And there it is, the sort of standard sump that goes on the bottom of these water dispensers. It's full of water that I flushed through. And what I tend to do is put a little bit of degreaser and cleaner in it. Hot water, bit of disinfectant and detergent, and that sump is now clean. If you don't clean these, it takes about a week and a half and they begin to smell, and the water is foul in there because it's warm, it's not going anywhere, it's not flowing. So that's rather essential. This is where you need several hands, so I'm going to have to let the... And all you do is offer this up and then slide this lever across, and that's it, locked in place. There we go, all sorted. And finally, don't forget your outside taps, because they're linked into the building. This is a great tap to show you the sort of aerosoling effect. Now from that simple little tap run, water droplets are falling all the way over here and beyond. And a sort of handy did you know hint that if you pull a flush in your bathroom at home, a standard Euro-sized bathroom, the aerosol droplets will go through the whole of the bathroom. You might not see them because they're microscopic, but that's how far they can travel. And this is just a tap here, and look, That's the effect of the aerosol all the way over. It's very important that everything is documented. I think you all recognise this book, and property record book, and the recordings and the observations you make should all be documented in here. If you haven't done the paperwork, you haven't done the job. Lots of interesting guidelines as to what you're supposed to be doing, so have a read of the front few pages, and then there we go. That's an example of documentation, and simply initial and the date that the water run was done and the location that the water run was done, and this book will document the whole year for you. It goes into several sections, and if you remember, we ran the water in the water dispenser, and again a note of this needs to be made. When you go further through the book, it talks about water temperatures, and that's an important set of videos that we'll make to show you exactly what to do and how to take water temperatures. So, paperwork. If it's not documented, it's not been done. Keep a note of everything.